Okay, let's just do this then. So today we're gonna review Zai's practice run, and we're gonna look into some of the goals that he has. Focus points are: I tend to underlevel a lot when racing. Wasn't the case in this run though. Overleveled in a few places even. So his general strategy is to do something different that he's done here, so it's even more out of his comfort zone. I feel like I mainly make a lot of small mistakes in this run, which slows me down in the end. Also was pretty lucky in this run, and I didn't abuse it enough, I feel. Yeah, that's often a problem whenever like people just don't get lucky. Whenever they do get RNG, they don't use it fully. Mistakes I noticed myself. Getting layout wrong, mostly due to it being early in the season though. This will get better. Merveil is a good example of where it goes wrong. We do have to keep in mind, however, that it is before the race season, right? So Masters and all that stuff fucks everything up a lot, often. Class management, watch the Lyra fight for a good example. Try and keep that in mind. Forgot some gems until quite late. Forgot Herald of Thunder of Ice entirely. Yeah, that's pretty big. Wearing the right colors of my items always. Didn't have enough blue slots in Act 2. Brutus fight was a bit meh, because I didn't feel like I could tank him. Alright. Let's look into this. I am gonna mute the music though. Nuki lessons for 50 bucks? Not quite, but we'll see. Pretty good RNG so far, you know. He's killed the zombie in only 3 hits. I'd consider that a success. It wasn't quite 2 hits, but at least the race isn't over yet. Right now he's just looking for chests. There's one. Oh, yeah, you better pick those up. I would actually pick up both, because the iron helmet, the iron hat you can also sell for wisdom scraps, so that's pretty usable. Yeah, equip the... Whoa, what's happening with his mouse? Equip the scepter for the extra attack speed. It's very good to find a second weapon on the coast, especially if it's something like the second dagger or something. Like if you're playing Scion, just about any weapon is better. Yeah, de-equip the chest piece, although at this point it's not necessary. If your computer's not all that fast, you can log out and appear a little bit faster in town if it's fast, but his apparently isn't, so he doesn't do that. Sell stuff for wisdoms. Yes, yes. I generally prefer to check Tarklee first, just in case, and also check for movement speed boots. Gets a nice scepter because that's our lightning trap links for later. And okay, a couple things that I would have done differently. Tarklee, I definitely would have checked first. He got really lucky with the scepter because this literally sets you up until the end game because you roll a +1 lightning on this scepter and you're Gucci. I would definitely get a freeze pulse as a shadow, and that's also the reason why I prefer checking Tarklee first, because sometimes you end up with no wisdom scrolls, but in his case, despite of what he picked up, he still didn't get the freeze pulse, and it's quite important. I feel like people overuse Orb of Storms nowadays and Spark, but don't use enough freeze pulse for AoE clearing with something like a shadow. But, you know, that's just a habit you have to develop, and a lot of it is also just personal preference. But this way I think if you go to Tarklee first, generally you won't run out of Wisdom Scrolls nearly as much. Right? And also the Hellrake kill is significantly easier. He's killing some mobs here, that's a little bit random. I'm not sure if he's trying to get level 2 or where this is coming from. Maybe he doesn't want to get chased by a big pack because he doesn't have the freeze pulse. Very risky strategy, but miraculously he survives. Generally what you want to do with Hellrake is pull him between like the boat, in the crack of the boat, or behind the boat. That way no mobs can really come to you and your spark can bounce around, killing everything around you a lot faster, increasing your single target. But he didn't go for that. Very YOLO strategy, but somehow it worked out, although it wasn't the fastest of kills. Something that I also think here is a big mistake is generally, since the goal of this run is get set up for farming in a 1 hour signature race, which means that the goal for like a decent skill player is to get to warehouse and farm there for as long as possible, so you gotta do it quickly. You should be checking for MS all the time. So he leveled up, but he didn't check for movement speed boots, he didn't check for a scepter, he didn't check for a +1 like he did before. And if you don't have those, it is worthwhile to check again, as long as you've got the wisdom scrolls to buy them. Right? And yeah, here he's not doing badly. How to equip the chest piece, takes it off. Picked it up probably for a Brutus kill, so that's completely fine. You don't want to be using a chest piece obviously because of the movement speed decrease. Good read on the layout. And we're getting to the glyph. Didn't pick up 2 blue items after killing Hellrake. Yeah, you want to pick up, especially as a shadow, as many blue items as you can possibly find, because you need at least 2 transmutes after the first act so that you can buy your multi-trap and your flame surge. At that point, if you don't find a Jade Amulet, you're gonna be tight on time also, because you need to buy a Jade around level 16 so that you can continue to level your fire trap. And there's also always, as like, the more transmutes you have free, the more you can try and craft usable items like his scepter, or try and craft his Quicksilver for extra charges and resistances, which greatly help. They prevent, if you have enough resistances, they prevent stuns, and that's pretty great. He picked up a transmute, that's a pretty lucky drop. He ran past the scale vest, which would have helped him on Brutus, but he still has plenty of time to pick a different one up, and I'm sure he was flustered because of the transmute, because that stuff just doesn't happen. He runs past the blue pack. I would generally agree with that. I definitely don't agree with the way he's going about this layout. Yeah, he realizes quickly that he just wasn't paying attention where exactly he was going, because you gotta go top right in this situation if the bridge was to the right. And yeah, that's really just about it. He has a pair of boots that's a 3-link. I believe they're white, otherwise he would have already ID'd them. Another thing that I would have done in this situation is when I get the fish scale gloves. That's a big mistake. Not picking up a blue pair of fish scale gloves is definitely gonna cost you. Not only can they have life and dexterity, which sets you up for later, but also it's the best possible base you can have for a Brutus kill at this stage in the game. So fish scale gloves are incredibly useful. Goes for a blue pack, finally finds one. Very nice. A pair of letter scale boots, which is also the best base you can get at this point, and he does pick them up. Doesn't pick up a blue scepter, so yeah, definitely itemization is his big problem. Not only did he not pick up a 4-slot blue item, he also didn't pick up a weapon that could have potentially increased his, doubled or even tripled his damage if it rolls flat damage. So yeah, itemization is definitely something he needs to look more for. But gameplay wise, he's doing really well. His fire trap game is pretty good. He is overkilling a little bit every now and then, but I can completely understand that. You know, if he's not picking up items, he's probably thinking about something very intensely. And even here you can see that a freeze pulse would have done a lot more than placing down a Orb of Storms and Sparking, in my opinion. Aside from like maybe blue packs and rare mobs. But generally for white mobs, yeah. Also, as a shadow, you don't have to commit all that much to killing. Like, if you've got 2 scepters, you can just 1 fire trap just about anything in this situation. But he's really trying to make sure that he's killing mobs. But this is something that you just speed up with a little bit more in the future. And then there's the second transmute, so really lucky despite the lazy play with not picking up the blues. And yeah, the thing that I was talking about earlier is he didn't check for movement speed boots when he was picking up Orb of Storms, which he also should have done, because at this point he would have checked the vendor. Oh wow, and an alteration, that's super lucky. He would have checked it 3 times. So if it's worth it, he notices the RNG. If it's worth it to do that at the very start, it's worth it to do that later also. Yes, evasion is a lot better than armor early on. You have to keep in mind that big hits can still stun you and all that sort of stuff. While with evasion, you know, your evasion resets, and generally you try to avoid getting hit so that you don't get stunned. And due to that, it just speeds you up, right? And it's also safer, because it's better mitigation for the most part, unless you get enough armor. And yeah, if you never get hit, you never get stunned. Alright, just running mostly through here. The reason why I said he's really lucky is because... Oh, he used the transmute on something. I didn't quite catch what he used it on. But he got the alteration, so he's free to craft a +1 on his scepter now. He doesn't need it until after Merveil when he's level 12, but he's already set up, which is really nice, because you can free up your mind, right? At this point you can think about other things. What exactly am I going to do for the Brutus kill? Why didn't I pick up that Scale Vest? All that sort of stuff. I remember seeing he used it, but I don't remember on what. People in the chat are saying boots, but it doesn't seem like he got anything there. Doesn't pick up the TP scroll, also in my opinion a big mistake. The Light Brigandine is the best base for level 8, but as a shadow you don't have enough strength. So you'd have to find like an Amber Amulet or something. I generally don't pick it up, but I think it's a misplay. You should be picking it up. And yeah, maybe potentially on those fish skull gloves that he didn't pick up earlier, he could have gotten strength, or maybe he's gonna find like a heavy belt. I believe those are level 8, and that also would have helped him out. And another transmute! Wow. Really, really lucky here. At this point I would definitely transmute the scepter, you know, because even if you have to set it up so that it's blue for later parts of the game, but even now you can still get additional flat elemental damage on your scepter, right, which would help him a lot. Like, it's a ton of damage, even though the scepter is level 1. Like a 1 to 3 is still a bunch of damage. And yeah, he's doing pretty okay with layouts. He definitely is playing a much better fire trap now. There's a glass shank that he also should be picking up. Yeah, definitely something he really needs to work on. Despite a dagger not increasing his double dipping potential with the fire trap, right? Because it doesn't have elemental damage like the scepters do. Still, flat elemental damage is incredibly powerful at this stage of the game. Sometimes it even doubles up your damage. So it's very important to pick up any blue item like that. And worst case scenario, he doesn't have wisdom scrolls, he sells it for transmute shards, which is still really good. Or he gets alteration shards. He has the alteration orb, but he will need multiple. He will need a Herald of Ice, he will need a Conk effect, he gets the faster casting by default from Weaver. But if you have too many, you can also get Controlled Destruction. If you happen to find a 4-link, if you want to link your fire trap or something like that. All of those things really add up in a longer run like this one, because he's planning to do like a 1-hour run essentially, right? Because approximately you should be, if you're really good, you should be in like warehouse around 48 minutes, especially with something like a shadow. That's probably the strongest class this early on. But yeah, a little bit lackluster in the itemization, but he makes it up with proper play and proper layout reads. Doesn't seem like he hit any masters. But yeah, the time I believe is a 12:25, which is pretty good. I'm not quite sure if he is level 8, but one thing that I really want to mention that I didn't mention before is that he did not pick up an added lightning despite having a blue 2-link in his scepter. So you should, I feel like in prison you should really, in this situation, definitely 100% of the time pick up an added lightning, and make sure that your fire trap and your spark is linked with it, and it will greatly increase your clear speed. And yeah, there is a Brutus strategy where you can trap him in the room and just spark him down in the primer, I believe it's called. He mentioned that he is scared, he was a little bit scared of the Brutus fight, but you can see that it makes a huge difference, because at this point Brutus already would have been dead, and it wouldn't have been a risky fight if he used the proper strategy. But he feels like he doesn't have enough gear, despite him having enough gear. Like, if he would have picked up everything properly, he would have definitely had enough gear, and this would have been a much simpler fight. easily not only running to this point, he could have set himself up, he could have run through prison faster. Oh gosh, don't vendor the dagger. Whew. Okay, that's a big misplay. But we'll talk about that in a second. He now picks up the added lightning. And then yeah, the Brutus fight would have been much easier. So that alone could have saved up a lot of time in the long run. Yes, and he could have also crafted the +1 lightning on his scepter, and that would have granted him insane damage. A +1 lightning on a scepter with an added lightning for a Brutus skill makes him die instantly. You can even shock him with that on a shadow. So it's a tremendous amount of damage. So yeah, you gotta work on that. I think he hit level 8 just now. You know, maybe he felt like the density wasn't high enough. But he did what he did. Interesting thing, he picked up the multi-trap at this point. He opted to pick up the multi-trap rather than craft his Quicksilver. I would have definitely crafted my Quicksilver knowing how many transmutes I have, but it seems like he's really counting for the transmute drops, which is very risky, rather than actually picking up items to use. Because even the Scepter that he picked up that was triple, despite finding so many transmutes, he's still kind of short. And he picked up a dagger that he didn't even ID, which could have, again, doubled his damage. It's very lucky to find those. And in my opinion also, he's pretty underleveled. Like, he didn't have too many mobs in prison, but he's pretty underleveled. Because generally on a Shadow, this isn't specific to all classes, but on a Shadow, the faster you get Flame Dash, the better. And often you want to sacrifice your Brutus kill speed and all of those things just so you get it. So in my opinion, there's never really a too long of a prison. As long as you're not lost, like as long as you're not backtracking, you're killing mobs, your prison can never be too long and you can never be lost in it. Because it pushes you closer to level 10. And that's super important. And if you hit level 10 in prison, you can also save a lot of time by going down the ledges and all that sort of stuff. But since you have so much elemental damage, you can actually kill things with your Flame Dash. So it's very, very important. But he's getting really nice density here, and he's definitely making up for the EXP that he didn't get in prison. But that's obviously not his fault. And also now he's actually finding blue packs, which I don't feel like he's found all that much before. And there's the heavy belt, and then there's the Number Amulet. You know, at this point he could have equipped the Brigandine for the Merveil fight and essentially face tanker if he would have a Sapphire. Because she can't rake you with the auto attacks, the swords don't do anything, and you're really, really, really set. And you can see, I believe he still doesn't have a pair of gloves, or he has like a rawhide pair or something. Yeah, he has a rawhide pair. That was the chromatic that he picked up earlier. So if he were to vendor this, you know, he has a chromatic, but he doesn't have a pair of gloves. So again, the fish scales are really biting him in the ass. Like at this point, there's potential that they could have saved him a lot of time. He's vendoring, trying to get more alterations. Greedy man. And yeah, he picked up some gems. He didn't... What's weird to me is that he went to town. I don't feel like it's necessary on a Shadow to go to town at this point. You can do that after a Merveil kill since the waypoint picks itself up automatically. But what's really weird that he did that he should have done differently is maybe he was looking for something specific, although I think for Act 2 he's pretty set, but he didn't get Flame Surge, which is a misplay because if he's already got the multi-trap and if he's already got the lightning trap, he really needs that Flame Surge, especially since he had the transmute. So at this point, he didn't go to the vendor twice when it was a good thing, but he did go to the vendor twice when he could have just went once, and now he's gonna have to go 3 times instead of once. Yeah, he says he forgot Surge, exactly, yeah. So he's, you know, he's aware of these things, right? But it's just something you have to really get used to. Especially on a Shadow player, since Act 1 really should be your strongest act. Because Shadow really starts slowing down around Act 3. Or towards the end of Act 2 even. Yeah, getting some blues. Hits level 10, still in Caverns of Wrath. You can see that he actually got a Master, so his layout is a little bit cocked. There's a Sapphire Ring for the Merveil fight, very useful. He still has a whole bunch of TP scrolls, despite not picking up some of them. So he should be completely fine for the Merveil fight, but keep in mind that you can always sell the TP scrolls for Wisdom scrolls, which he doesn't have at this point. Yeah. Carve mentions that, in his opinion, he should have transmuted the Quicksilver long ago. I definitely agree with that. Oh my god! What the hell? That is insanely lucky. And yeah, he immediately transmutes the Quicksilver. Doesn't hit anything. He could augment it still for charges, but I'm sure he's a little bit freaked out. You know, it is overwhelming whenever you get this amount of RNG. It's just very easy to craft things, but he's still working on his crafting game, like he mentioned himself. But in terms of actually killing, at this point he should change his playstyle a little bit, and instead of fire trapping, he should be flame dashing a lot more, especially since he doesn't have movement speed boots. Actually, it does seem like he's running a little bit faster. I'm not exactly sure if he has MS or not. I didn't spot when he transmuted the boots whether or not he got it. But yeah, either way, even if you have MS, you should be flame dashing a lot more. I think he also ran away from Merveil just now, but that, you know, happens every now and then. Maybe he's trying to hit level 11 for Merveil. Oh no, he didn't. Okay, yeah. He's doing fine. Yeah. And he's starting to work on his flame dash. Flame dash is really important on a shadow. Because all these, like what he's doing right now, he could have just killed all of them with one flame dash. Not only does it recharge your Quicksilver flask so you run faster, but you also get EXP. He's quite close to level 11, and level 11 and a little bit, and that's when your gems level up, you see over here. And they receive like a humongous damage boost, like 30% if you don't have any scaling. So it's quite important if you're in a position where maybe you got lost, maybe you just had really good density, maybe you got really lucky with that. You hit the level 11 and it really speeds up the kill on a shadow, because shadows don't get something like a flame totem. But he plays the fight correctly. He got hit by a bunch of spears there, but it's really not that big of a deal because he does have the Sapphire. The positioning could be a little bit better, because generally you can position yourself if you're still using Spark. I mean, mostly you're gonna still be using Spark. Very rarely do you hit level 12. Although it happens, but very rarely do you hit level 12 in Act 1. But the way he could be positioning himself is to bounce the sparks off of walls, right? So even now, you see how he ran away? He could have just stood here and just attacked her so that the sparks jump and stay in the circle of the Orb of Storms. Yeah, as long as you have her ignited the whole time and your Orb of Storms is there, it's pretty good. You won't save too much time by positioning yourself, and you do have to keep in mind that whenever you position yourself, you don't attack, right? So it's a pretty big deal. Yeah, I think he even hit like a couple crits there. There's another alteration that's incredibly useful. I see that he's still not picking up the blues despite knowing that he needs to, but I would have been flustered with this RNG also, so it's completely fine. There you go. Stuff leveled up, you know, it's kind of a waste that it leveled up essentially after the fight, but what can you do? It's definitely not worthwhile to run around and kill mobs, but he could have gotten a little bit more EXP. I think he got a little bit freaked out, like you said before, with the layout in caverns, so he just wanted to get to Merveil as fast as possible. But it was still a decent Merveil time. It was about 22 minutes, which is generally alright, considering that he's done most of his gem picking up and like his crafting in Act 1. Oh, actually, he has the items, but you could see that he could have, like, with this type of RNG, he could have had like a 19-minute Merveil if he was a little bit more consistent with the things that he was doing, you know, and just not forgetting things. But still pretty a-okay. And yeah, the famed question, why doesn't he use an armor piece? For the fight on Merveil, he should have. Like we mentioned before, the Brigandine would have been a perfect piece, but generally a chest piece slows you down, so you don't want that. You want to run as fast as possible. That's the reason why it's so important to get charges on your Quicksilver and all that. He picks up the Flame Surge. In his situation, again, I probably would have just logged off of the Merveil since you have the waypoint and you don't have to load up multiple times. You don't have to go to the waypoint here, run like all the way down. You just appear in Act 1 and then just go to Act 2. So it's not a big deal, but it does save you a couple seconds, which really adds up in a race like this. As you can already see, you know, even in Act 1, he could have saved up quite a bit of time if he just was a little bit more consistent with the things that he's doing. But he's still polishing his game. And yeah, the usual strategy. This is a little bit of personal taste. Oh, can he do it? Yeah, he can. This is a pretty tricky jump with Flame Dash, but he gets the first try, so that's really nice. As long as you position yourself correctly, it's quite simple, but every now and then, you know, mobs can interrupt you and all that sketchy stuff. And, yeah. Yeah, it is your run. So, there's a chromatic orb right there, a chromatic item that he probably should pick up because he's just trying to get the waypoint in Western. And then he, goes to town either way because he has to go crossroads, right? So picking up the chromatic would always be worthwhile. And although it might not come into play because he is only preparing for a 1 hour race, it is quite a big deal. This is something I really disagree with. You really shouldn't be killing mobs in this zone because you're way too low level. So you're not really getting optimal EXP while the zones surrounding you give a lot. And he equips the Lightning Trap, picks up level 12 in Riverways. Its density was pretty good. He could have killed a little bit more, but that's also the reason why hitting level 11 and then maybe even level 12 in Southern Forest, or at least like in the early stages of Riverways, is very important, because with Lightning Trap, your AoE goes way up, especially if you're not playing enough with Flame Dash. He really doesn't use enough Flame Dash at all. If I'd have to point out like one major mistake in the way he just fights mobs and gets EXP, is that there's definitely not enough flame dashing. But he seems to be quite the lightning trap player, because yeah, he does that well. And I'm not quite sure if he crafted the... I don't think so. I don't think he crafted his weapon. That's another thing that he could have done already in Act 1, even before Brutus with his RNG. But he didn't do it. And on the Brutus fight, it would have saved him a lot of time. On the Merveil fight, it would have saved him a lot of time. That alone could have been like a minute. Because you have to keep in mind that whenever you crit, you know, you shock these bosses. You have more than enough damage as a shadow to shock these bosses whenever you crit. And at that point, they just melt with all the damage that we have. They really just melt. But yeah, it is very important to craft the +1 as soon as possible, especially since he got so lucky with getting the blue-green scepter linked. Because generally you end up with a wand and you end up gimping your fire trap. He's typing something here. Should have made +1. See, that's exactly the thing. He's well aware of these things, but it's just so hard to keep up in a race. When you're thinking about all these things and you're trying to look at layouts, you know, killing mobs efficiently, it's quite difficult. So it's practice, practice, practice. So even though you know what you're doing, it's just really, really freaking hard. But yeah, he's doing quite well here. Since it's a pretty easy layout, he gets kind of lucky because he only hits level 13 now after one of the wings, and generally as you enter with a shadow, as you enter Sins 2, you kind of want to be level 14 or at least level 13 and like 60% plus, because that pretty much, without RNG, enables you to hit level 16 for the bandits, which in his case allows him to buy a Herald of Ice, and then alongside a Herald of Thunder, it's a pretty big damage boost for the boss kills, because he still has to use Flame Surge for his single target. And actually, for this particular race, unless he, I don't know, finds... Well, no, either way, he would always use a Flame Surge. Later on, you skip to a Flame Blast, but this won't be a long enough race for something like that. But yeah, correct layout reading. Since it's always the same, he's doing pretty well in going the right direction. He's very he's killing a lot of stuff. I can see that he's trying to hit the level 14, you know, time his Quicksilvers. It's always very nice to time your Quicksilvers for exactly this stage where you can just you know, rotate between your Flame Dashes and your Quicksilvers for that little bit of a boost, you know. It's only like 2 seconds, but it's a big deal. And yeah, he transmutes the weapon finally so that he can craft a +1 on it after the fight. And yeah, getting a little bit YOLO here. That's another thing that you do want to pick up a Topaz, because if it's very difficult to like work a Topaz into something like this, you know, if you're trying to go fast. But getting a Topaz for this fight and for the Vol fight makes it really easy for you to face tank both of those. So whenever you're now moving around, whenever you're face tanking, you can just attack freely. So even though you don't get these things to increase your damage, you do increase your damage by a lot. And yeah, you have to take out all the gems. He crafted the Topaz right there. He gets the alteration. He's looking for the alteration. He's looking for the Topaz. He's got it. Probably should augment it, but I see that he's just trying to do this as fast as possible. Can't really blame the man. And then exactly, that's a very smart move. Get the boots ID'd as fast as possible. Sadly, he doesn't get any movement speed, but you know, what can you do? That's just life. But it was very smart to sell the portal scroll for the wisdom, since in this particular race he won't need that many TPs, because in warehouse you can farm freely, and you don't really TP out in any fights. He is going for the Lyra kill. Okay, so this is definitely something different. Well, something that I would have done differently. But he might also just be forgetting that he hasn't done Weaver yet. So the reason why you want to do Weaver first is because you don't get nearly as much EXP here, right? And you have to run this twice. So it's better to be higher level, because you can see that his Flame Surge is about to level up. All his stuff is about to level up. And if he would have went Weaver, all of this would have leveled up, because Weaver's zone is higher level. But if he's doing a Lyra, it didn't. So now he's gimping himself because his gems aren't leveled up yet, but he has to deal with bosses. And yeah, he spams his potions and runs out. It's pretty unfortunate. Actually happens to me quite often too. If you go a little bit overboard, there are pretty YOLO strategies here. Oh my god. He's still alive. Oh, he hits him though. He hits him. Oh, the plays. Oh my god. Wow, he goes completely YOLO. He actually dodges the corpse explosion and miraculously lives. What a boss. Holy crap. Gets the amulet, and yeah. All of this might have looked differently if he just did Weaver first. But yeah, that's something that I run into as a problem also, that I just spam my potions, and every now and then I end up with no potions. But a couple things about the layout that I would have done differently is you can almost immediately see the webbed trees, and that indicates that you're going towards Weaver. So if you do Weaver first, again because of the skill gems, if you do Weaver first, it's very easy to just go to the left immediately and just try and find the wall, and that way you can find Alira without having to find the broken piece of the road which indicates where Alira's camp is. Because every now and then the road would just, like in this layout, it's just going to travel up towards the waypoint, and that way you have to go down, you have to go to the side, and then you have to go up towards the waypoint to find it. While if you just go directly left, left and down, you can immediately find it sometimes. And in this layout, it actually would have saved him quite a bit of time. That would have been like at least 30 seconds. Yeah, gets Weaver, perfect layout read. He's done that pretty freaking well. He has nice potions, by the way. That's also another thing that he's been pretty lucky with. I think he scores a crit because he dealt a lot of damage to Weaver just there. Despite not really having an offhand, which generally... I'd say it's kind of unlucky, but he didn't pick up enough gems. He didn't pick up enough items, right? He didn't pick up multiple skinning knives that potentially could have been an offhand. He didn't ID the yellow skinning knife. He didn't pick up like 2 scepters around ledge. So that's definitely messing him over at this point. And I believe he is level 15, so he... Not only did he do one of the bandits first, he didn't hit level 16 and he can't equip the Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. So Kraten's also going to be significantly slower than it could have potentially been if his density was a little bit better, but that's not really something that he can do much about, you know. Despite clearing the zones in a different order than I would have done it, it can't really fix up your density, and his lightning trap play is really proper, so it's not like he's leaving mobs behind or something like that. Generally, he should be level 16 around Kraten. Yeah, well, an insane amount of items. There's a Quartz Scepter that he definitely should get. There's a Heavy Belt that he probably should get. There's a bunch of scrolls. There's gloves. He's using still the white chromatic gloves that not only is a chromatic, but also, you know, they're white so they don't give anything. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff that dropped that could have literally saved him minutes in the race that he sadly just didn't pick up. But yeah, he gets the leather belt, gets a bunch more life. It's completely fine. The reason why also I would have picked up the heavy belt is because at this point I really like transmuting belts for charge recovery and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I believe he's level 16 now, so he would have been able to equip the quartz, you know. He would have been able to equip the herald, but it's just really hard to keep up with this stuff. And then logs, I believe, with a dagger behind. That might have been a dagger, but I also might be wrong. Yes. Hope he's gonna open his equipment here soon. He still has the alteration. He did pick up the faster casting, however, he didn't get a conk effect. And the cool thing about the faster casting is that you can attach it to your flame dash to move a little bit faster. And if you don't have a mess boots, it really makes a big freaking difference, right? Because you really have to rely on your flame dash a whole bunch. Oh, he's going for something here. What's the plan here? Not quite sure what he was going for, but he did something. Now he's just looking for oak. But a conk effect, not only does it make your mana more efficient, but also it deals a lot more damage than having a faster attacks attached to your thing. And yet again, doesn't pick up a dagger. It's a really big mistake. It really could be doubling his damage, you know. You can see that he's crafting for like cast speed on his weapon, but not picks up a weapon that could have literally changed the race entirely. And yeah, you got a pretty nice layout. Let's see if he's watched Karvarosku's video. He didn't. If he would have known that he has to go directly down for the thing. But you know, layouts really come last. And he finds a triple blue scepter, quartz scepter. That's very, very good. Immediately moves his... I don't like the fact that he threw this out. He should sell it for alteration orb, but he immediately moves it. You know, the Orb of Storms won't really come into play. Don't worry about that anymore. But I think he's looking for the Flame Dash and all that stuff. You know, Flame Dash, Flame Surge with a faster casting and a scepter. It's incredibly useful. But sadly, since he doesn't have enough transmutes, he can't craft this in any way, right? He can't do anything with it. So if he would have picked up a little bit more items, he would have been set. Twitch just went down? What? Still working for me. Oh, rip VOD. We'll see how exactly it turns out. But yeah. Right now in Ruins, I think he's about to hit level 17. Like he mentioned, he did forget about the Herald device, but what can you really do? Every now and then this is gonna happen to you. And I can completely relate to this where, you know, there's just so many things that are happening. He's so lucky in like some fields and so unlucky in others that it's just really hard to pull your shit together unless you've raced enough, and you know, this is like a frequent situation for you. Or not frequent, but like something that you're just used to. There's a greater life flask. I would have picked that up for crafting a grand. He actually has 2 grands, so yeah. Running past it is also a good idea. Although, having more grands, if you're picking up items, enables you to transmute your flasks and potentially get a instant flask. You know, and that allows you to face tank things a lot more, which essentially increases your damage by a lot. But you can see that he's focusing more on like actually traversing through the map rather than, you know, gearing up and all that. Yeah. Want to buy enough runs so I don't freak out when a good one happens. Yeah, exactly. That's something, that's a big struggle for me even now, where whenever I get movement speed boots or something, I freak out because I've got good RNG, and it's just really hard not to forget like the small things that generally you're very used to. Right? So sometimes even though you've got RNG, your run might be worse than just a bad RNG run, because there's just so much stuff happening. Like the game really speeds up, especially with those movement speeds and double quicksilvers. But if you have a lot on your mind, if you find a lot of transmutes and a lot of alterations, you just always have a lot on your mind and you're constantly trying to craft. And you know, crafting is a small thing, as long as you've got your main setup, which is like the 3-link lightning trap and all that, compared to like actually picking up items and actually killing stuff properly, you know, not overkilling and utilizing your flame dash. But that's just something, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to do all of these things at once, so there's no shame in not dealing properly in every single situation. He's actually getting, this zone is generally very nice EXP because of the density, and he's getting a lot of blue mobs, and he's really utilizing it well. You know, he's not just running past a lot of this stuff, which would be a reaction for a lot of people, because it's like, oh, you know, I already have enough EXP, I'm so close to Vol, why don't I just rush it? No, he's setting himself up for later, and really doing well with picking up just about all of these mobs, which can be tricky with lightning trap in this layout because of all the trees and all that. You know, pulling mobs and throwing the lightning trap behind you is really freaking good. Yeah. This is an interesting skill tree choice. He goes for the crackling speed. I would definitely recommend to pick up the hasty construction, so that since we're setting ourselves up for farming in warehouse, if you're in a farm zone with a shadow, and that's partially the reason why it really falls off compared to other classes, is because lightning trap's just not good enough compared to something like a firestorm with like an offhand. Right? Lightning trap still has high damage rolls, so even with an offhand, there are situations where you just don't kill anything with it. And yeah. Also another thing, he de-equipped both of his flasks at once. I understand it's a YOLO play, but you generally shouldn't be doing that. I know it's faster to just de-equip both of them and not worry about it, but at that point you have no flasks, so you can really cuck yourself over. I know I did that in a couple races and it really messed me up. So, yeah. Sarinda whispering about an arc. Pepperoni. Now let's see what he does. Something that I like to do in this layout is go towards the like entrance to this zone. He chooses to go another way, so it's going to be quite interesting for me to see what exactly is going to be the layout, because I again would have went left, which is where the entrance to the zone was leading. but he goes directly up. And not having too much luck here. I might be looking to go somewhere over here. But obviously this is, a lot of it is RNG, you know. It's just approximately in my experience. Well, it's not RNG, I'm sure there's a layout to it, but it's very difficult to read. But approximately, like in my experience, it does happen a lot more often if you go towards this this place. But with the masters, it's hard to read. And if this would have been me, I would have been extremely happy now because I would have hit the correct way. But, you know, every now and then it messes me up too, so... It's not like it was a mistake, I don't think. Unless there's somebody out there who has the perfect read on where the ancient pyramid is. But I don't think that's the case. And yeah, a quick tip for people who maybe do shorter races and don't generally get to Vol or something like that is... once you get into Ancient Pyramid, the first stairs can be anywhere. Meaning, you know, across, left, right, they can be anywhere. But all the next set of stairs are always across from the entrance, right? So he doesn't have to go to the right, he doesn't have to go to the left, he can just directly go across and it's always going to be there. So this is something that might save you a little bit of time in the future if you're doing like a Vol kill or something like that, because sometimes Ancient Pyramid can be pretty frustrating. And he actually, something really cool is that he didn't have particularly good density earlier on, but he, you know, it balanced out now because in Caverns he killed a lot in Ancient Pyramid. His Northern Forest was really good, so you've really caught up in EXP. So despite me thinking that probably around Vol he's gonna be like 19 and 20% at most, he actually managed to hit level 20, which is great because it allows you a lot more freedom in like Sarn spots and Crematorium, because you only need to hit level 21 for Warehouse. You still want to be efficient, obviously, but you don't have to kill mobs that are somewhat questionable anymore, right? Because you don't have to worry about being under-leveled at all. And yeah, let's see what his Vol RNG is here. He's getting a slam. Good, good. The worst case scenario is if he were to start making ads. And that's exactly what happens, but he's got him down to 50%. Again, he's got the alteration. He forgot about the Hurl of Ice, so he could have gotten a conk effect, which would have literally doubled up his damage also, rather than using the faster casting, which he actually doesn't have linked. He actually forgot, despite having the time to do this before Vol, he forgot to link his stuff. So that's another thing, you know. However, his potions are a little bit low, but if he would have used the conk effect with a Flame Surge link, ooh, a little bit risky here. He would have definitely sped up his Vol kill. Maybe he wouldn't, yeah, definitely wouldn't have even gotten ads twice, which alone would have saved them multiple seconds. Which again, adds up a lot. Yeah, he's messing around with it now. After the fight he links it, so as I said, he just forgets about these things. But, yeah. Do what you gotta do. Thanks for the host, Cream. And it's really straightforward from now on. I'd say for a race like this, the difficult stuff is done. As long as you know how to exactly do Warehouse, but yeah. Well, I guess generally you really need to experience, but I believe this is only a setup, so he won't actually watch the way he farms. He just wants to know how to essentially progress a little bit better through these acts, and I would say most of the stuff he already knows. He just seems to forget about it, you know. He points out a lot of those things. But it's just repetition. You just gotta keep doing it over and over and over. Right. Gets the Clarissa. Something that I really like to do over here is just Flame Dash, you know, especially if I've got this much EXP. You can just Flame Dash, recharge your Quicksilver really easily with a Shadow with 2 Scepters, and he's got a Quartz, right? So that's 20% elemental damage, which makes your Flame Dash do more than enough damage, especially since he's got faster casting linked to it. And yeah, another couple seconds that could have been saved, you know. All of this adds up. You can still see that he's trying to fiddle with his gear as much as possible, which is a really good reaction. You just constantly, even if you're sure that you can't do anything, try and look at your gear, try and look for just the tiniest things that could help you in the long run, you know. Everything else that he's doing right now, that could be like a mistake, right, if he's forgetting things. Woo! That was a little bit risky because that's a brutal. So if those mobs would have exploded, that could have ended badly, but luckily he did just fine. But, you know, some of the things that he's forgetting that he clearly knows, those are just the things you have to grind out. But being smart about like your crafting is really something that makes the difference between like a good player and the best player. So definitely correct to just constantly look at his stuff. A little bit of a misread on the layout. I can't really blame him. He did get a corrupted zone, and it's a difficult layout to read if you get a corrupted zone, because sometimes it looks like it's a close end, but then, you know, it's actually, you can just actually run past it, so, yeah. Pretty unlucky there, but I don't think that's a misplay. And, yeah, he hits the dead end, although it does look kind of awkward if you look at it, because there's actually things over there. So at this point I would be a little bit freaked out, because I wouldn't be sure if it goes all the way to the right or if I have to go to the top left. It's also really difficult to spot that when you're like in the midst of things, right? So if I would have... I actually wonder what he's gonna do here. Yeah, he actually hits the trial. Okay, so at this point we can see that it is in the top right. But it's not like he wasted any of the time by going in a wrong direction or anything, because it's the trial makes it very linear, right? In this particular layout, yeah. And he hits it quite fast. Also being level 21 already, so he's set up for warehouses, and he doesn't have to make like side trips anywhere to get any EXP, like picking up the blue mobs from the busts and all that. And this is another fight that a Topaz Ring would have been really helpful on. You know, he got pretty close to dying on Vol, and he had to dodge around, or he could have just face tanked it. And this fight he could have face tanked too. And then Piety runs away from you, and that's really annoying also. So you can't really do too much about that, right? But it does ensure that you will survive, and you need a Topaz to prevent one-shots in the sewers from dischargers. You still might die if you get like a powerful crits or something, but you know, you'd have to get kind of unlucky, or your pathing be wrong, or get stunned. I kind of like that he didn't make a new instance here, despite it being most of the time easy to read where exactly you're supposed to go for the crate. I still like it because he does have enough EXP. So the fact that he didn't make a new instance just basically speeds him up, gets him closer to warehouse. And this is the moment where I probably would have been pissed off, because, you know, you immediately see the master, and it's like, you know already that this layout will be much longer. The masters doesn't really mess up this layout too much. He's a little bit lost. Or maybe he saw the shrine, but I didn't. But they don't mess up this layout too much, but they do make it longer, like significantly longer. So in his case, he should be going to the bottom left right now, or well, like down and left. But he is looking around for his stuff here. You can see that he's still getting used to the layouts in Act 3. And that's really the difficult part for a race like this, you know? If it's something in Act 3, you have to do a race where you get through the first 2 acts, and Act 3 can be a real problem to a lot of people. But he finally finds it, and we're pretty much almost done. And we're also at 53 minutes, which isn't really that bad, honestly. I think he made up a lot of time with just proper play. Despite having not the best density. A little bit of a layout mistake here, but he sees it and corrects. But, yeah. He sees it all here. Run away from the dischargers, no topaz, too tricky. And I think it actually ends here rather than goes all the way to the warehouse. Yeah, it does end here. So 53 minutes to get the waypoint. I'd say really good considering the amount of things that he's forgotten, especially with trying to get weapons. You can really see that he tried to well, he didn't try, he really made up for the problems with his strategies with just really good play. He just killed mobs really freaking effectively despite having not the best density. But yeah, it's primarily the things that he mentions in the post. A little bit of problems with the layouts, but that's not a big deal. The flask management I thought was pretty good. He reacts pretty quickly whenever he gets hit, and since he runs a 2-potion setup like I do, because some people like to run 1 potion, especially if they pick up another Quicksilver, you know, this style works really well with topping you off so that you never get one shot if you have, like, you know, a little bit lower life. And yeah, just gotta polish it out, I think. Just gotta play more so that whenever you get the really good RNG like he did with the transmutes and alterations, you need to know exactly when to use those properly and really utilize how much you've got, right? Because it does make a bit difference, especially the +1 in Act 1, and especially transmuting your Quicksilver as soon as possible. Yeah, I think that's just about it. Yeah, it's Zai's replay.